how did you get diagnosed?
Very interesting story. So I just, my friends that I told you about told me about the apps that are on my phone. And that caused me to start a YouTube channel, Backwords Dude. And another one of my friends from film school agreed to go out in downtown Charlotte, where I live, with a great big sign that says, "I'm the Backwords Dude. I can say anything backwards. Just give me a sentence." And we would film their reactions while I would do the thing with the phone and the app. And people would just freak out. Well, like I said, I work in film. And so me and my buddy, we were on set one day, and he brought one of his friends in that works in the video department of a place called Southeast Psych. And they specialize with Asperger syndrome. And I didn't know any of this. And so the guys there on set, and my friend Charlie said, "John, talk backwards for Sean." And Sean's like, "What is this?" And he flipped. And he's like, "Oh my gosh." And he went and he told his employers, who deal with Asperger's patients all the time, and they had me go in, and they met me, and they started telling me how brilliant I was. And they had me do a short video skit with them where I'm doing everything backwards and need help, and go to them, and they teach me how to talk forwards through using the app. It's a cute little thing that we did, and we did it kind of quick. But he then said, "You know, why don't you come into my office in a couple of days and sit down and have coffee with me, and I'll tell you why you're brilliant and why you don't think that you are." And so I said, "Okay." And we sat down, and he said, "You have what they call Asperger syndrome." And I said, "Wait a minute, isn't that autism?" And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "But wait a minute," he said, "you don't really have full-blown autism." He said, "What you have is a gift." And he said, "You're incredibly brilliant." He said, "It's not about talking backwards." He made that very clear. He said, "This is about how your brain works and processes information. And the fact that you learned to talk backwards when you were 5 shows how incredibly powerful your mind is." He said, "That's just a funny little thing that you latched onto as a child, and now you've got this thing as an adult that you can do." He says, "There's something else that you're very good at." And he's like, "You've got to find out what that is." And I still don't quite know what that is. But my mind has a unique way of processing information. And I'm gifted, and it's brilliance. And so after 46, it's like, wow, I'm now able to see myself in a right way, and not put myself down, and not step back and say, "Oh, you know, I think it's this way, but what do I know? I'm stupid." You know, that would kind of be my way in the past, and it would be frustrating for people.
I understand. So for those who are not familiar with Asperger's, can you explain what Asperger's is and where it sits on the autism spectrum? Maybe we'll also talk a little bit about autism itself.
Absolutely. So Asperger's is a higher functioning form of autism. It's in the autism family, and there are several different places on this spectrum, from high functioning to lower functioning, you know, that you can be with Asperger's. So I'm very high functioning with this. You can't tell talking to me. There are other people that when you talk to them, you probably want to strangle them. You know, they just, they prattle off information all the time and talk too much, but they're brilliant all at the same time. You know, there's several people in history, Sir Isaac Newton, Albert Einstein, Thomas Edison, who else? Alfred Hitchcock, Dan Aykroyd, who are on the autism spectrum with Asperger's. Mozart had Asperger's. You know, he started writing music, you know, as a small child. And I wish I had a gift like that. Instead of just talking backwards, but talking backwards is pretty cool, so I'll go with that. So that's Asperger's right there. It is, as Dr. Frank Gaskell at Southeast Psych calls it, there's a little bit of lemon in your water, just a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so Asperger's, how does it? What are the effects of having Asperger's? It's one of the things is being very focused on a narrow field of interest.
Absolutely.
As far as I understand.
Yes.
So what are other characteristics?
Gosh, we are incredibly honest. We're too honest. It's hard to tell a lie, and you can get yourself in trouble with people because you don't always say things to other people exactly the way they are. It's offensive, or it's unnecessary, and it can cause tension. What else? I have a tendency to talk to myself a lot, and if you give me a backwards request, you'll see me do it. You'll see me do what I will catch myself doing now, like if I'm all alone, I'll just go, kind of like that. But it's more, it's more in a trance when I do it, and I notice that I go into that trance when I start learning a short sentence backwards for somebody, and you'll see it in my videos. In fact, you'll see me going like this and just kind of moving my mouth, which you would say that's normal. He's figuring this out, but at work, if I'm sitting at my desk and I've got stuff going through my mind and my mouth's moving and talking, that's weird because nobody knows what's going on. So that's something that I'm trying hard to work at stopping, but it's hard. It's like it's like if a computer's rendering out video and audio files, if it does it with all the picture and sound on it, could drive you crazy. Well, that's what my mouth is doing. My mind's constantly on, as most people's are, but my mouth's moving as to what's going on, and I'm aware of it. So it's weird characteristics like that.
I see. Okay. You said that your brain processes information in a different way. How is that? So how is it different from like me, for example, or any other person?
You know, the only thing I know to tell you is I can't do math, and I think a lot of people can do math. You would think that I could do math, but I just see it differently. I'm sitting here counting my fingers, trying to do math, as to where other people, they can do it just like I do the backwards talk. They can just figure it out, somehow. I noticed that when I went back to school, my younger schoolmates, they were able to just figure this stuff out, and they're like, I don't know how I do it, I just do it. And that's what it's like with the backwards talk. I just do it. I guess I am more privy to audio, but also kinetic, very kinetic, a kinetic learner, but also audio-based learner. So audio plus kinetic, that would be my field. And also if I can put my hands on it. And that's another interesting thing. So when I grew up, this would be the 70s and the 80s, to play something backwards, you had to record on tape. And you would have to open up the cassette tape and reverse the little wheels inside and then rewind them. So very, very hands-on and kinetic. And I think that that process and going through all that trouble helped me learn it better.
Okay. So you need to be hands-on to really process information and have the impression that someone. Okay, I get it. So when you were younger, I mean, in our pre-interview, you mentioned that you experienced bullying a lot when you were younger because you couldn't connect with people your age.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, once again, if you've got this one kid and he sits over here, he doesn't say anything, and he never does his schoolwork, you're going to be privy to or open to bullying. And it wasn't too awfully bad for me. You hear these horrible cases today. With me, the kids would just laugh, or they'd be like, you're so weird, or something like that. And then there'd be occasional name calling. There wasn't a whole lot. I never got beaten up. Which was nice. I actually got into some fights as a young kid, like second grade, and I think fourth grade I got into a fight. But after that, I didn't, because I turned out to be this really, really skinny kid, and all the other kids were a lot bigger than me. So I couldn't really do anything. And I think that's another thing. I kind of learned to shy back and not state my opinion as much, because I knew that if I did, I'd probably get an ass whooping.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, that's what it was like growing up. But not, always being seen as stupid, being told I was stupid, and I think that hurt more than anything. being called, gay because I didn't date anybody. And then I also thought, well, what girl would want to go out with me? I don't have a right to ask a girl out on a date. So, you just get picked on in that regard. So
Okay.
It's hard. It's hard. It gives you a bad self-image growing up, and then you got to deal with it later on in life.
I see. Okay. You also mentioned that you were more inclined to people who were much older than yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you're 8 years old, like you're drawn towards grown-up people, for example.
Yeah, those would have been my friends back then, and my siblings are a good 16 and 23 years older than me. So I always felt that I belonged with their crowd. And of course, rejection there because, a little kid can't really be hanging out with 20-year-olds, going out and drinking beer and whatnot. And so, that didn't work. But because of my curiosity with how movie theater projection systems worked, I wound up meeting a guy who was, I guess, a little bit older than my brothers. And he took me under his wing and taught me how to run the projectors of the movie theaters when I was about 10. And I could run those projectors, like the first day that he showed me. And he noticed that my mom didn't really believe in me, and that even my mom was saying things like, well, we've got so many problems with John, and we just don't think he's going to make it. And so my friend John, his name was John as well, came up and he would say, your son's very smart. He said, most people who come into this projection booth, it takes them a long time to learn this stuff, and he's learned it like the first or second time he's ever done it. And my mom just dismissed it. And years would go by, and I'd go by to see John, and John would say, John, don't listen to anybody tell you that you're not smart. He said, you are so smart. And then he even talked about the backwards talk. He's like, I've never seen anybody that can just say words backwards like you. He said, that means you're brilliant. And he's like, I don't know how it's going to be applied, but you're going to do something great. So, I preferred to hang out with older people and became friends with older people and went to work in the movie theater business, and then became friends with the man who was 90 years old and still working as a service technician. And he would have all these stories to tell me, from the 1920s on through the 20th century about the movie theaters. And then he and I would go get lunch right after he retired at around the age of 90. The friendship continued. So it was always somebody older, like to be my parents' age or grandparents' age. I just felt more comfortable there.
I see. Okay. And so when you when you finished school and you were about to enter a profession, how did that go? Did you say, okay, I'm because you had this bad self-image, so did you ever think about what I'm going to do in the future? Well,
the way that worked was I dropped out of high school at the age of 16 because it was getting to the point where I was so miserable and at school and didn't like the kids, and they didn't like me. And I wasn't learning anything. So my mom said, okay, we're going to pull you out, on one condition. You still have to get your high school diploma, but we did it through the community college. So I got it and wound up learning my math and getting better reading skills. And doing stuff that I thought I would never be able to do, but because of the poor self-image, did not really apply myself and did not go to college. I just continued to work at the movie theater business, and then one thing led to another. I got involved running TV cameras on a volunteer basis at a church, and that was the beginning of my career in television. And then I just started doing some videos on my own and would go rent an edit bay at a production company in Charlotte, and they wound up hiring me, and so I got my first job as editor. And then that just, multiplied. I moved from there to another place and then another place and moved up and had a career as an editor. That's how that began. And I started seeing that there was a lot more out there, and I decided to go to school, in my late 30s. So I did things a little bit backwards. I realized the older I got, it's like, okay, wait a minute. I jumped way ahead of myself, in my teens and 20s. And now I need to go back and I need to make up for some of this. And I did. And I did. I caught up.
Okay. So how does like Asperger's help you in your editing job or in your profession as a video editor?
Oh, it absolutely helps me. So being able to be a very visual person, that's something that people with Asperger's have. They're gifted with that. So I can just see things happening in my mind. And so, when I sit down to a project and I start putting things together, that gift comes into place because I might have something arranged a certain way and I can look at it and I say, you know what? I'm just not feeling it. I'm just not feeling it. And then I'll realize, you know what? If I take this shot and I put it here and I rearrange this and I do this part first and then this part, it's really going to make a lot more sense and it feels more balanced. And so for me, having those kinds of feelings and those kinds of intuitions makes me a very valuable asset as an editor.
And also as a job that requires a lot of patience. And I've been doing a fair bit of video editing for my stuff.
Of course,
myself,
right.
and it just, it drives me fucking crazy at times. I got some people doing it for me, but sometimes it's just faster because I know what I want to do and want the way I want to look, have it look like and stuff. So sometimes I just do it myself. It's just like before I explain it to someone, I'd rather do it myself, and it just drives me nuts at that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I understand. I've been there. I've worked with people who wanted to do that, and then I worked with people who don't even want to touch it, and they want me to do it. And then I'm the same way with my stuff. I'm frustrated with it. I would like somebody else to look at it, or I know exactly how I want this to go. It's one of those things. It's a very interesting profession, and good editors are very hard to find. There are a lot of people out there that have the software and know how to push the buttons, but this is not what this is about. This is about a feeling. It's how you feel. It's how you see things. And it's also how you relate to people. That is very, very important. And I have found that to be true many times over within my profession. It is very important, the relationship that the editor has with the director and the producer is just absolutely paramount.
Absolutely. And I've seen this many times when I give stuff to edit to someone and I outsource it. When you're trying to find someone who's really understands what you want to do, it's often so frustrating because you can give them a lot of raw material, and in your mind it seems clear what you want to do with it. It seems like, okay, that's the stuff, and come on, it needs to be this and that way. And then just people are completely hopeless, and then they send you back something that what the hell is that? That doesn't make any sense. And that's like, and then you have to, you run through several iterations, and sometimes you find someone who understands you, and then hopefully they are going to stick with you for a while. But it is frustrating. It is definitely frustrating.
It has to be. It has to be the right fit, And I've worked with people, like I've said in the past. It's been a perfect fit, and then I've worked with other people. It is not a fit at all, And you have to.
Is there any category that you prefer working on? Because I could imagine if you're bad with interpersonal things, then telling interpersonal stories in a video might be something that's difficult
I
for you.
actually love stuff like that. No, because I'm able to feel it more when I do that. And so that's very rewarding for me to be able to work on projects like that. Yeah.
Okay, that's funny.
You feel a connection.
So basically when people are out of the equation, then you're good with people stuff. In a strange way. So
isn't that weird? That weird? But no, and you don't get those skills overnight. Nobody does. One thing that I'm really blessed with is, a lot of editors, a lot of really good editors are older. Because they, the more life lessons you get under your belt, that translates into your work. Okay.
Yeah, makes sense. That makes sense. What would you say is the one thing that people misunderstand about you most of the time?
I have a tendency to jump ahead of them, and or I'll vocalize something and they'll think that I mean it for them, and when I don't. Trying to think of an example. I was working with a client once, and they were telling me something, and I went, no, 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 no. But I wasn't talking to them, I was talking to the computer. The computer was doing something I didn't like, and they thought I was disagreeing with them. That's I don't know. That's one instance right there. You know, I think with Asperger's and having this type of mind, we have a tendency to think that we're right, and everyone else is wrong. And you know, sometimes that might be the case. But you know, how do you make that case? How do you present that to somebody? Are you making them feel bad? Are you making them feel like they're wrong? And people don't like that. So there are ways to do that. Sometimes you need a situation to play out a certain way, and just satisfy that person. It's like, okay, you want me to make this wedding cake, but you want it upside down. Okay, well, if you do that, the layers are going to fall over, you know, because the small layer is going to be on the bottom, and it's going to go like this. And it's like, well, that's the way I'm seeing it. And it's like, well, if you're going to do that, you're going to need to put some sticks in it or something to hold it up. I don't want sticks in it. I just want it to. Okay, you know, we'll do it your way. But then sometimes there's, you know, you got to be patient because somebody might have an idea and they need your help to do it, and they do have a way to make it work. And if you'll just cooperate, you know, it'll turn out.
Okay, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I have a good friend. It's kind of an on-off business partner that I have. We've been working together for like 7 years, and sometimes we just have a project that we work on really intensely and we're really close, and then we manage to just not communicate for a year, and then we just kind of get back to it. And a couple of actually days after we got in touch, just by pure chance, we get in touch again, and he told me that he was diagnosed with Asperger's in his mid-30s. And he said, like, now I finally understand, because that explains so many things, and that explains why I'm so good at certain things and so bad at other things, and why I'm so bad at social things. And what you mentioned is true, because he's the one guy that I love for being brutally honest. And there were so many times like, dude, you're an asshole. You're a fucking asshole for telling me that. Of course. I'm just telling you how it is. Like, just don't tell me that way. I mean, you can say it in a nice way.
So you understand what this is.
You don't be a dick about it. I mean, I'm not being a dick. I'm just telling you. Like, yeah, but. And so we had these arguments almost, and now he said, now this is one of the things that I now understand, because that's just me, and I'm not a weirdo in the sense that I have a bad personality. It's just the way that I think, and I don't see anything bad about telling people that they're wrong. And if I think they're wrong, then they're just fucking wrong, and I'm going to tell them they're fucking wrong.
Right.
And that's that. And that's that. And then, of course, you have other people who might not be very receptive for this kind of communication, and that's how I get into trouble. And then again, there's so many things where he's really brilliant in terms of being very, very focused on certain things, and having the ability to do incredible deep dives into certain topics in a very short amount of time. We say, whoa, when did you learn that? So yeah, but he mentioned it, like, he describes it in a similar way than you did. Like, it was a revelation to understand what's wrong with him, or wrong with him in a way. Yeah.
Exactly. Or what he needs to change, what he needs to improve on, you know.
Here comes the sunshine and burns away clouds like they never were.